Huxley's Illusions of Henry Foster, Benita Hoover, and Joanna Diesel. Benita Hoover from Brave New World is much the same to Herbert Hoover, the 31st President of the United States, along with the Hoover Company manufacturing vacuums and the Italian fascist dictator Benito Mussolini. Herbert Hoover was the 31st President of the United States. Hoover was president from 1929 to 1933. Hoover believed strongly in cooperation between government and business for economic growth. It might also refer to the Hoover Company since they were using mass production when Huxley was writing. Benita Hoover relates to the Hoover Company because of the use of mass production when Huxley was writing this novel. By 1933, the Hoover Company was the world's largest manufacturer of vacuum cleaners. The Hoover Company believed in the importance of volunteerism and individual roles in society, much like Herbert Hoover had. Benito Mussolini was an Italian fascist dictator. At the time Huxley was writing Brave New World, he was the Prime Minister in Italy. From 1922 to 1943, Mussolini led the National Fascist Party. He aspired to create a totalitarian state with no freedom of press, no other than political parties apart from the National Fascists. In the beginning, Mussolini had worked as a journalist in the socialist press, but his support for Italy's entry into World War I led to his break with socialism. He was then drafted into the Italian army in September of 1915. In March of 1919, Mussolini formed the Fascist Party, galvanizing the support of many unemployed war veterans. He then organized them into armed squads known as Black Shirts, who terrorized their political opponents. Mussolini was notorious for using violence or action troops for political purposes. Henry Foster's character from Brave New World is presumably derived from Henry Ford, the American businessman, Henry Foster, the British naval officer, John Foster, the essayist, Carrie Foster, the 19th century scientist, and finally, Henry David Thoreau, the poet. Henry Ford was an American businessman who changed how factories worked and created a new method of mass production. He is also credited with the assembly line and revolutionized automobiles. During World War I, he also became known for his opposition of the war. Henry Foster was a British naval officer in the 19th century who went on expeditions to the North and South Pole. He was also a scientist who had a love of numbers and recorded scientific observations in his time traveling the world. He was also elected a fellow member of the Royal Society. John Foster was an English essayist and Baptist minister from 1770 to 1843. He went to a Baptist college and began his life as a minister, preaching and lecturing when he could. Foster's popular works as a writer attempted to push the development of a strict national education system. Carrie Foster was a 19th century scientist. He studied organic chemistry and became appointed as a professor of natural philosophy at Anderson's University shortly after joining the British Association for the Advancement of Science. He then was elected a fellow of the Royal Society just like Henry Foster had been. He also created laboratories for students. Henry David Thoreau was a popular American poet and author in the 19th century. With over 20 volumes of writing, Thoreau became most well known for his writings of natural history and philosophy. In addition to this, he was also a well-known philosopher, naturalist, tax resistor, abolitionist, and critic. The English line of kings included 9 Henrys. The most well-known is King Henry VIII. Henry VIII is known for his separation of the Church of England and the Roman Catholic Church. His lasting impacts are the changing of England to a Protestant country and the theory of divine right of kings of England. Overall, Henry Foster from Brave New World is much the same to Henry Foster because of their shared love for numbers, Carrie Foster for his devotion to science, Henry Ford for his perfection of the assembly line, and finally, Henry David Thoreau and John Foster for their belief in education. Joanna Diesel from Brave New World comes from Rudolf Diesel, the inventor of the diesel engine itself, and the origin Hebrew name of Joanna, meaning gift from. Rudolf Diesel was known for inventing the diesel engine. He was born in Paris in 1868, but then he was forced to leave because of the Franco-Prussian War. Then he settled in London. After graduation, he was a refrigerator engineer. He designed many heat engines, including a solar-powered air engine. Rudolf Diesel invented the diesel engine, which is an internal combustion engine that uses the heat of compression to initiate ignition and burn the fuel that has been injected into the combustion chamber. Rudolf himself was almost killed by his engine when it exploded, and he uses vegetable oil for diesel engine fuel. Diesel was said to disappear from the steamship Dresden while traveling from Antwerp, Belgium to Harwich, England. A Belgian soldier aboard the North Sea steamer spotted a body floating in the water. Upon further investigation, it turned out that the body was Diesel's. It was officially judged as suicide, but many people believed that Diesel was murdered. In Huxley's novel, Joanna is presented as an extremely attractive female, but Joanna in Hebrew actually means a gift from God, which may be the reason Joanna is the name chosen. Joanna didn't have a big role, but her role was to bring up efficiency, just like the diesel engine had efficiency.